The Marian Hegemony. In the years since the end of the Fourth Succession War, the Marian Hegemony has transformed itself from an insignificant pirate fiefdom to a potentially major periphery power. Expansion and improvement of its military, its recent conquest of the mineral-rich Lothian League, and the opening of limited diplomatic and trade relations with the Capellan Confederation and Free Worlds League have changed this latter-day Roman Republic into something more closely resembling an empire. Caesar Sean O'Reilly believes he is destined to lead his small nation to greatness, and he is none too picky about how he achieves this goal. Unfortunately for the average hegemony citizen, these changes have meant increasing loss of freedom as the Caesar tightens his personal grip on power. Foundation and early history. The Marian Hegemony was founded by Johann Sebastian O'Reilly, a native of the periphery with considerable charisma and a knack for taking advantage of lucky breaks. In 2920, O'Reilly arrived on the world of Alfred, once the home of the Alfred Trading Corporation, but left desolate by the tribulations of the Succession Wars. On Alfred, O'Reilly stumbled across a hidden storehouse of germanium, a critical element in the construction of jump ships. The cache turned out to be worth 50 billion sea bills, and the world held more germanium waiting to be extracted. O'Reilly wasted no time hiring mech units and establishing a colony on Alfred, installing himself as its leader, and modelling the government of his newly christened Marian Hegemony after the Republican Rome of ancient terror. The arrival of refugees from pirate raids and the Inner Sphere's ongoing conflicts swelled the hegemony's population within a few years of formation, and O'Reilly's government eventually established economic and military control over 8 planets. Initially, the hegemony's moderate prosperity depended on Alfred's treasure trove of germanium and a modest level of industrialization. Piracy also played a significant role. The hegemony profited handsomely by using its small but effective army to raid the border worlds of neighbouring states during the Third and Fourth Succession Wars. Marryin privateers did especially well during the Fourth Succession War, raiding Free Worlds League planets and ambushing Marryic trade ships. The Canopian worlds also presented tempting targets, as the magistracy armed forces were otherwise engaged in attempts to take planets from the beleaguered Capellan Confederation. Johann's grandson, Imperator Marius O'Reilly, who ascended to power in 3009, frequently went beyond raiding and attempted to capture entire worlds. During his reign, the hegemony became involved in an increasing number of border clashes with the Lothian League, the Niops Association, and the Free Worlds League. He apparently made no attempt to capture Canopian worlds, however, most likely because of the MAF's overwhelming strength in comparison to his own Marryin legions. After the Fourth Succession War, Imperator Marius used proceeds of the raids to strengthen and expand his nation on several fronts. The Marryin government founded schools and military academies, funded the development of new industries, and raised soldiers' pay, amongst other benefits. Literacy levels rose, along with the general standard of living. Among the young Marryin citizens entering the new Collegium Bellorum Imperium for mech warrior training was the Imperator's own son, Shan, who began attending the military academy in 3032 as a member of its first class. Upon Shan's graduation in 3035, he was given a lance command in one of the hegemony's 3 battlemech battalions. The hopes of some observers that the Imperator's civic improvements indicated his desire to make the hegemony a more respectable realm were dashed later that same year when the Imperator narrowly escaped an assassination attempt. Captured and beaten by the Imperator's personal guard, the assassin claimed to have been hired by the Free Worlds League, an agent operating on the independent planet of Astrakazi. Outraged, Marius swore to avenge himself against his attackers. He didn't dare move militarily against the powerful successor state, but spread the word among the hegemony's privateers that raids against the Free World League planets would buy them favour in his eyes. He also sent the first Marryin Legion to smash the world of Astrakazi. Astrakazi's tiny, disorganised mech forces swiftly fell to the Marryin assault. The Imperator proclaimed it a hegemony possession, but before his forces could solidify their control, reinforcements began arriving from surrounding periphery realms at the request of their various city-states. In the face of potentially stiff opposition, Marius O'Reilly gave up his claim to the planet. Rise of Caesar Shan. Between 3035 and 3040, Shan O'Reilly distinguished himself in military service. Scattered rumours reached the Imperator of his son's gambling, numerous dalliances with women, and frequent involvement in duels, but Marius passed these off as typical sowing of wild oats. When Shan informed Marius that he would be a grandfather before the end of 3040, the Imperator decided it was time to steady his wild son by giving him greater responsibility. A few days after the birth of his grandson Julius, Marius O'Reilly announced plans to expand the hegemony through colonization. He placed Shan in charge of the operation, a challenge the young man eagerly accepted. Shan spent the next 2 years organizing the necessary equipment and personnel to colonize 3 nearby planets. Unknown to the Imperator, Shan was also siphoning off a portion of the colonization fund for his own personal use. During his 5 years of military service, Shan had run up quite a string of gambling debts and was also supporting several mistresses on various hegemony planets. The colonization went smoothly, and by 3045 viable settlements had been established on all 3 worlds. Shan then approached his father with a plan to develop light industry in the colonies, using ongoing funds from the imperial treasury. Delighted to see his heir applying himself to the business of governing, Marius applauded the initiative and enacted the proposal into law. The development scheme proved a boon to the new colonies and simultaneously provided Shan with a steady stream of illicit monies. In late 3046, the Imperator stumbled across evidence of his son's illegal activities. Furious at Shan's duplicity, Marius summoned him to Alfard and demanded immediate restitution of the stolen funds. When Shan refused, Marius threatened to bar him from the succession in favour of 6-year-old Julius. Almost immediately, Shan backed down, promising to mend his ways and repay the imperial treasury as best he could from his limited personal income. As proof of his good faith, he immediately ended relations with the 2 most expensive of his mistresses, sold the properties he'd given them, and signed the money over to the treasury. Grudgingly, Marius relented and at the end of the year publicly reaffirmed Shan's status as his heir. Underneath these civil facades, however, both men remained suspicious of the other. The Imperator's continuing coolness toward him convinced Shan that his father secretly intended to pass the leadership of the hegemony to Julius. Determined to keep this from happening, Shan began to build a power base within the First Marryin Legion. Shan's ascension. In 3048, on a visit to one of the new Marryin colonies, Marius O'Reilly died in a climbing accident. Amid rampant speculation that he had somehow arranged his father's death, Shan returned to Alfard and assumed rulership of the hegemony. In his first public proclamation, the new Imperator imposed a 10-day period of mourning for Marius, and at the end of that time, he said he would formally take up the reins of government and begin to lead the hegemony toward its true destiny of a great empire. As a symbol of the future that awaited the realm, he would change his title from Imperator to Caesar. Almost immediately, the Caesar began revamping and expanding the military. Between 3048 and 3052, Shan O'Reilly more than tripled the size of his realm's armed forces and reorganized it along Roman lines. The bulk of the new force were battlemechs, which the Caesar organized into 3 legions, each the size of a large regiment. Backed up by an increasingly powerful military and especially the staunch loyalty of his former comrades in the First Marryin Legion, the Caesar also consolidated his personal political power. Those few voices that might have been raised against Shan's increasingly dictatorial rule were swiftly silenced, either by the promise of riches through conquest or by threat of force. Most hegemony citizens, unused to any great degree of freedom, hardly noticed a change. During this same time, 2 more sons were born to the Caesar, each by a different mistress. Aurelia Davidson gave birth to Marcus in 3049. Lydia Humphreys, a distant cousin to the Humphreys family of the Free Worlds League, gave birth to Trajan in 3051. Shan installed the children and their mothers, along with Julius and his mother, in a sumptuously furnished wing of the imperial residence on Alfard. When Gordon Humphreys, planetary governor of Islington and Lydia's father, objected to his daughter being made a concubine, Shan summoned him to Alfard and had him executed. The remaining members of the Humphreys family took the hint and kept silent. The clan invasion. The clan invasion of the periphery and inner sphere left the Marryin hegemony untouched, and the rumours of war on distant planets provoked little concern amongst hegemony citizens. Most agreed with their Caesar that the inner sphere was only getting what it deserved, and as for the clan's conquests in the periphery, the realms swallowed up were comfortably far away from the hegemony borders. When a delegation from the magistracy of Canopus arrived on Alfard in 3051 and offered the Caesar a chance to join a periphery-wide alliance against invasion by inner sphere or other forces, Shan scoffed at the proposal. Hoping to cause trouble for Magistrix Emma Centrella, with whom his political and personal relations had always been strained, Shan made the Canopian proposal public to the inner sphere. No successor state responded with so much as a rebuke. The successor lords, busy battling for their lives against the clan war machine, had no time for the pronouncements of a petty periphery dictator. Socio-political structure. The idea of a Roman Empire in the barbaric periphery conjures a variety of images, few of them encouraging. A closer look at the Republican ideal as implemented in the Hegemony, however, reveals that the structure is not too far removed from the feudal system in place throughout much of the inner sphere and parts of the periphery. Most Marryin citizens accept the system without complaint, acknowledging that it beats the harsh dictatorship suffered by most of their neighbours. All the people in the Hegemony can be divided into three distinct social classes: the patricians, or upper class, the plebs, or lower class, and slaves. At first, the patricians were simply defined as those who owned land, with all of the citizens falling into the pleb class. Early on, wealthy plebs began buying land and titles, becoming patricians themselves. Patrician status is now hereditary, a nobility that differs little from system across the inner sphere. Since land ownership generally passed from parent to child anyway, few complained about the new order. Only patricians may vote or hold political office, attain high military rank, or own real estate. In effect, they represent the Hegemony's legally perpetrated upper class. This system remains viable because the majority of patricians realise that they retain their position only on the sufferance of the plebs and treat their slaves and employees fairly. Under the increasingly harsh leadership of Caesar Shan and his supporters, however, the possibility of rebellion becomes more real with each passing day. Slavery, though, is not uncommon in the periphery. The Hegemony is one of the largest states to condone it. Because it is illegal to buy or sell a citizen of the Hegemony, slaves are most often prisoners of war. Given enough time and a generous owner, a slave may eventually petition the Senate for citizenship, though such requests are rarely made and even more rarely granted. In order to win his freedom, a slave must prove his worth to the Hegemony and his ability to sustain himself and his family in both cases. This usually amounts to a large bribe to the proper senatorial council. Marryin Hegemony military. Though the Marryin legions suffered some losses in the final battle for the Lothian League, they have nearly rebuilt for their former strength. Because of Caesar O'Reilly's reorganisation of the armed forces, precise equivalents aren't possible, but current Marryin military strength amounts to roughly 3 battlemech regiments, with near 3 times that number in conventional forces. Competent and aggressive, the legions are a fearsome, potent force. Most of the legionaries are solidly loyal to their Caesar, as the military owes much of its current power and prestige to him. The Caesar recently commissioned the building of another military academy, primarily intended to train aerospace pilots. The Flight Academy of Alfred is expected to open its doors in 3059, and boasts 3 former Outworlds Alliance pilots amongst their staff. By training cadres of aerospace pilots, Caesar O'Reilly hopes to bridge the Marryin Legion's only remaining weakness.